In the backyard of Los Angeles, a recreation area would bring wild nature to millions.
It needs to be done sustainably, and it needs to be done cost-effectively.
Growing our own fuel. Can the country score a home run by turning these grasses into gases?
After we've put so much work in the greenhouse, it's become almost a reward to be able to plant them today.
Restoring native plants in a spectacular frontier. The work comes with a few surprises.
There are places where the fire completely consumed the forest.
And scientists move quickly after a devastating Colorado wildfire to learn how to restore this ecosystem. We've got the plants, the passion, and the energy, starting now on This American Land. Funding for This American Land provided by the Weiss Foundation, the Pew Charitable Trusts, and the Turner Foundation.
Hello and welcome to This American Land. I'm Caroline Ravel.
And I'm Bruce Burkhardt in the Linville Gorge Wilderness in North Carolina with some terrific stories about people dedicated to the conservation of America's natural resources, its landscapes, waters, and wildlife. You know, when we talk about wilderness, we're usually thinking about places like this, remote areas where nature is unaffected by humans, places far from urban areas and the noise and pollution of civilization. But there is a federally designated wilderness that is virtually in the backyard of sprawling Los Angeles, the San Gabriel Mountains. And there's a plan in the works to include that wilderness and surrounding lands in a new national conservation area that would bring the natural world with rivers, parks, trails, and wildlife much closer to millions of Los Angeles residents. Our crew went there to learn more.
We have a Southern California region with 17 million people.
It is really a lot of people packed in.
There are freeways, there's wall-to-wall urban development.
There is terrible traffic, smog.
And yet you have this incredibly wild mountain range that gives people an opportunity to get away from the smog and the cars and enjoy some time in the woods and nature. So that in itself is remarkable because you can be here in less than an hour.
As the way the crow flies, we're less than 10 miles to residential neighborhoods.
It is one of, if not the most urban accessible wildlands that you can find in the United States.
The goal of the San Gabriel Mountains Forever campaign is to designate 122,000 acres of wilderness, 62 miles of wild and scenic rivers, and also make a national recreation area in the San Gabriel Mountains.
My name is Annette Kondo, and I'm with the Wilderness Society in California. San Gabriel Mountains Forever is a diverse partnership, and we've all come together because we think that the mountains need to be protected for future generations.
The first time I came to the mountains, I was about 17 and had no idea where we were going to go, but all I knew was there was going to be a waterfall at the end of it, and I had no idea how close the mountains were to Los Angeles and how beautiful it was. My name is Natalie Garnica, and I'm a volunteer for the San Gabriel Mountains Forever campaign. I fell in love the first time I came here.
For many people in Southern California, the San Gabriel Mountains, we consider it's our backyard. One-third of LA County's drinking water actually comes from these mountains. So it's a very important watershed and water source.
All of us fishermen that fish these areas, we're trying to protect the ecosystems, because without a good ecosystem, there will be no more fishing. My name is Robert Ota, and we're here at Johnny's Sport Shop in Pasadena. We're looking for like a 6X. My friends and all the other, my customers, everybody, we're all interested in preserving what we have now.
I remember a little girl getting off a bus here and asking if they were still in California. She was from an urban area down below. She just didn't believe this was California. It was so beautiful to her.
I can't believe how many people don't realize how pretty these mountains are. They drive through them, but they never stop. You gotta stop and look. It's so soothing to your soul to do stuff like that.
Once I get fishing, all I can think about is the fly and the fish.
And that's a nice way to recreate with your family or friends, maybe even a cheap date. You need to have that balance between the outdoors and the city. The purpose of the campaign with the National Recreation Area is to educate the people and also bring more resources such as rangers, which we're lacking a lot of, more maintenance on the trails, restrooms and trash cans, signs that are multilingual.
My name is Bill Reeves. I'm on the board of directors for the Fisheries Resource Volunteer Corps. Every year we have a cleanup and we fill a roll-off trash bin, and sometimes two. Tons of trash. Millions of paper plates and plastic cups and knives and forks and tires, whatever. It's amazing. If there was more resources, they would be able to just keep it clean.
The San Gabriel Mountains give Los Angeles County 70% of its open space. One of the goals of the National Recreation Area is to extend it into the cities. There are a lot of underutilized lands that we would love to go in and make it more green. We want to create parks because we want to give the opportunity to these park poor communities to experience the outdoors and bring in that greenery that we lack in these urban communities. The Rio Hondo River is one of the examples of how we're trying to use some of these underutilized areas and make them more green. Unfortunately, because of the concrete, a lot of people forget that this is a river. We're so caught up with the city life that we forget that the outdoors is right behind our own city.
A very beautiful spot, so close to so many millions of people.
It's easy to get lost when you're in the city, and when you come here, you're able to see clear blue sky because you've left the smoggy city down below. Incredible vistas and views. You really get a sense for the bigger world that's around us. It is literally a breath of fresh air.
Next time you're out mowing your grass, consider the possibility that that grass could be the source of the very fuel used to cut that grass. Maybe not lawn grasses, but close relatives, much taller relatives. I'll make all this clearer in a story that took me to Iowa and Tennessee.
You have to go in. You have to try it.
In central Iowa, a field of dreams, but not the cornfield made famous by the movie. This is a field of miscanthus grass. These dreams are about a new kind of energy future, where gas comes from grass. Is this heaven?
No.
It's Iowa.
This is the Sorensen Research Farm, and it's been dedicated to bioenergy crop production questions for the past couple decades.
Okay, let's keep moving, but yeah, feel free to ask any questions. This is canola.
I always consider miscanthus giganteus to be sort of like the crock pot of plants because you set it and forget it. By that I mean you plant it once, you plant these rhizome pieces that are sort of onerous to plant the first year, but then the stand grows back every year after that for what we think probably 20 to 30 years.
It's happening in Iowa.
One of the main questions is how likely are genes from improved switchgrass to hybridize with native switchgrass?
And it's happening in lots of other places, like eastern Tennessee. Researchers are working with different types of grasses and other cellulosic plant material to try and learn more about what it's going to take to grow our own fuel.
It's a simple concept, turn grass into gas. but there are a lot of things that have to happen to make that happen and happen cost effectively. That's one of the biggest factors, is that it needs to be done sustainably and it needs to be done cost effectively.
Sustainability. It's the promise of cellulosic energy crops. Cellulose is a complex carbohydrate found in most plants. It provides the sugars that can then be fermented into ethanol.
This spring, we've converted about 6 acres of the 17 that are here to other research plots for some high biomass sorghums and some different varieties of miscanthus.
Sorghum, miscanthus, and one of the more popular energy grasses, switchgrass. But other cellulosic sources include wood waste and corn stover, that leftover material in the field after corn is harvested. But the energy grasses are not leftovers. They're grown specifically as a renewable fuel source.
Switchgrass is high-yielding grass. You've got a definite yield advantage over a lot of your other perennial grasses.
Perennial. That is the key to its sustainability and its environmental friendliness.
Being a perennial crop, I would not be surprised if this stand was here 20 or 30 years from now. So 20 or 30 years from now, if this stand is still here, that's 30 times that we haven't had to go across this field with a tractor, spraying, perhaps disking, disturbing soil, adding herbicides, adding fertilizers, 30 years of no disturbance. And if you think about it just from a bioenergy standpoint, my goodness, that is an awful lot of carbon that we're not using to produce ethanol or other energy sources.
I'm Randall Peters, and we're pretty diversified. We grow row crops, corn and soybeans, wheat, and then we grow hay.
And in recent years, Randall Peters has been working with nearby Genera Energy to grow a new crop, switchgrass.
Last year we had a pretty severe drought, but we still got like 4 cuttings off of it, and it handles the drought very well.
With roots that go nearly 10 feet deep, switchgrass can handle drought much better than traditional row crops. But for farmers, there's an added attraction.
First year is the hardest until you get it established, but it grows so fast that it'll just outgrow anything else. And we put our switchgrass on probably our less desirable ground for crops. It was some poor ground we had, and it did really well on it. I mean, it'll grow anywhere, I think.
This is an ISCO sampler. It's designed to collect water samples from the stream right next to us, the Little Notchie Creek. Well, this creek is draining the land area for Randall Peters' farm.
Much of that land is covered with switchgrass, which does not require the fertilizers and pesticides that other crops do.
In general, Tennessee streams, the main contaminant is sediment. So by having a perennial crop in the ground, a lot of that sediment could be alleviated. Since you're not digging up the ground to plant something new every year, you leave about 8 to 10 inches of switchgrass in the ground, and it has the long roots, so it stabilizes the soil.
Good for the water, good for the soil. But perennial grasses offer another advantage.
You know, a few things about why we see wildlife habitat value here. One, again, we've talked about, it's not harvested during the summer. 2, it's tall, it provides good cover. But another reason that's important that I can show you down here, so what we refer to this as is a bunch grass. And what you can see is here's a bunch of the grass. Right here, here's another plant that is another bunch. But what you see is, because of the bunchy nature of it, there's a lot of space between the plants and a lot of open ground down here. And that's part of why this is so valuable to things like quail and rabbits, because their entire world is down here within 6 inches of the ground. And so they can run around through here.
But if farmers are to grow these type of energy crops, they need a market. That's where the renewable fuel standard comes in.
The renewable fuel standard sets a requirement, a minimum requirement of certain categories of renewable fuels that we are to blend in our U.S. fuel supply. And one component of that is a cellulosic fuel.
The Renewable Fuel Standard is a federal law that mandates a certain amount of our fuel comes from renewable sources.
The primary contribution of the Renewable Fuel Standard is that it provides kind of a base level of certainty to the future demand for these fuels, and it helps justify the investment over the long term.
An investment that could lead to a more independent and more sustainable energy future.
Now to Utah, where mountains, fossils, and deserts create a fantastic outdoor laboratory for high school students in Kanab. Their science lessons merge with a multi-generational understanding and desire to protect this land. Southern Utah, remote and breathtaking. And the hard work of these students may keep it that way. You may remember this incredible landscape from our show last season in the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument. That's paleontologist Alan Titus, and that's me, breaking a 75-million-year-old dinosaur bone.
Oh, you broke it. It's okay.
I should not be allowed to touch the dinosaur.
Here at Grand Staircase, we have a mandate to do research on public lands, everything from bees all the way up to these amazing dinosaur finds.
Let's get planting!
Students at Kanab High School are unearthing answers to a modern challenge, restoring a native plant called winter fat.
Wow, that winter fat looks gorgeous, doesn't it?
Yeah, that looks good.
That's a success right there.
They're using old-fashioned hard work and GPS technology taught by experts from the Bureau of Land Management.
And you find your easting number, 365. So here's your 360, 361 line, 362. Yeah, right up there.
Okay, so everybody's got point 2 ready to try and find it?
My mission is to get as many kids as we can back outside.
My name is Wade Parsons. I'm the education specialist for the Grand Staircase Escalante Partners. I believe over time we'll see a greater diversity of species on this plot as well.
As an educator and as an archaeologist and as someone who's concerned about the natural environment, one of the things I have noticed occurring is that our youth are getting further and further away from nature.
Grand Staircase Partners, along with the BLM and the Captain Planet Foundation, make it possible for these kids to help restore the land. They started by gathering seeds from healthy winter fat plants, then growing about 100 new plants in their greenhouse.
And we're putting them on the floor here. Bring the orange one in here, Danica. Fence guys there. Weeders here. GPSers here.
Where's the GPS?
Planters here. One for you. One for you. Get rid of the weeds a little bit, right? Around it. And then you can kind of kick those out of the way. Dig me a good hole. Go about 8 or 10 inches deep. This is Indian rice grass. So this is a native. My name's Barbara Warner, and I am the Natural Resource Science, Medical Anatomy and Physiology, and Biology teacher at Kanab High School. Winter fat is a forage item. Cows love it, deer love it, primarily because it has salt in it. This is our experimental plot. So we have been working out here for 4 years. This time we have a really good crop of winter fat. We're bringing it out, we're putting it in this site, and then we will continue to be able to see what affects this native plant. But the cool part is they're actually observing nature.
It's a horned lizard, and I just found it over there, just crawling around. I think it's adorable. It's just a lot of fun.
We talk about the scientific method a lot. You start with a problem. So the problem is, wow, the range is going down a bit. We're having a drought. What do we do? What about those plants that don't really go down so much when there's drought? How about putting more of those back out in the range?
they have a better chance of survival. Like if they have longer roots, they'll survive better in the desert, and that's something I learned.
I'm taking GPS locations of these plants, and then we record them so we can know which ones survive and which ones don't over the next couple years. It's kind of become almost a reward to be able to plant them today after we've put so much work in the greenhouse.
When I'm learning something in a classroom off of a PowerPoint or a book, it's easy for me to just memorize it for the test and then I forget it later. But when we come out here, it's something that you can remember and apply it to what you do.
These small number of plants, does it make a difference? Absolutely. We've had a hard time establishing winter fat on these grazing areas that used to be pretty bare. And these little plants are helping us recover the ecosystem that will allow us to do sustainable grazing on this land for generations to come.
Public lands are outdoor laboratories where people can come do research for themselves to learn about these areas, or also they can combine it with universities or with government agencies. I'm Roger Cole. I'm the Executive Director for the Grand Staircase Escalante Partners. What we provide are staff to work at those programs, and also we provide some independent dollars, like from Captain Planet, that helps us provide those programs to purchase seeds, to purchase equipment, and the expertise we need. It's really quite exciting.
They did a really good job. I think it just goes to show that if you give them a task to do and tell them that they can do a great job and you give them a little direction, sometimes they will totally surprise you, and that is the best.
As we've seen in the past few years, western wildfires can move quickly and leave a lot of destruction. Researchers also have to move quickly after a fire to begin the restoration of water and wildlife in these ecosystems. In our Science Nation report, Miles O'Brien shows us how some powerful new tools are making their job a little easier.
Just after Colorado's devastating High Park wildfire, these scientists were on the case, surveying the damage from the air and the ground.
We knew that we'd have to get out as quickly as possible in order to make these measurements, particularly as the summer storms come in.
With support from the National Science Foundation, Colorado State University environmental scientist Michael Lefsky led a rapid response team to study the fire's impact on the ecosystem. Colorado State worked with NEON, the National Ecological Observatory Network, also funded by the NSF. NEON's airborne and mobile units can quickly deploy to wildfires and other environmental disasters.
The NEON system will allow us to understand the fire's behavior and its impacts in a way that's never been possible without this technology.
Team members flew over the fire's path, conducting 3D remote sensing using spectroscopy, high-resolution cameras, and a LiDAR instrument.
The LiDAR instrument gives us the ability to measure the structure of vegetation, and the imaging spectrometer provides details such as discriminating between live and dead vegetation.
Down on the ground, teams were working hard too, monitoring the impact of the fire on land and water.
A mixture of mineral soil and a lot of ash. This will have some adverse effects on the fish and the other organisms in the river, but the biggest effect from a human standpoint, of course, is the effect on water quality.
There are places where the fire completely consumed the forest. It killed every tree. At the other end are places where the fire had very little impact, and then we're sampling them so we can find out just exactly how the forest is changing.
The combined data shows both healthy and scarred areas in amazing detail.
Short term, we have focused on providing information to the resource management agencies so that they can do a better job of planning their restoration activities.
Team members say there's been an upsurge in large forest fires in recent years. Better understanding of the destruction could help planners prepare for the future, protecting land, water, and wildlife.
Here's a quick look at a story from our next show.
Water is a very important issue for any rancher, and that's especially true for a wine grape grower.
We have to check to make sure that the pipes are large enough to handle the extra water that's going to be required for that block.
elevation? You know, NRCS came out several years ago and helped us create a conservation plan for our ranch. It was great because they listened to what our ideas were and issues that we wanted to focus on, and then gave us tools for our toolbox so that we could put into practice some of those ideas, the drip irrigation being the primary one.
If more farmers could switch to efficient irrigation systems like these, we'd save a lot of water in California.
We know that the water can better get to the roots, and also they're not using more water than is needed, and so the crops are healthier, and it makes more water available for downhill users.
Thanks for watching, and remember you can catch us anytime on thisamericanland.org. We'd like to hear your comments and your ideas about stories you think we should cover. We'll see you next time.
For more information about this program, visit thisamericanland.org. Funding for This American Land provided by the Weiss Foundation, the Pew Charitable Trusts, and the Turner Foundation.